Director of the Technology Venture. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot that part, Chris. I am Jill Meyer, and I'm the Director of the Technology Venture Studio. And Digital Sandbox is one of our programs designed for our early stage technology entrepreneurs in Kansas City to help get people through the proof of concept stage and to a working and viable technology business in our region. We're going to jump right in, and I am going to reiterate to everybody that's on the call, since I really can't see any of you, which is fine because you're over on the side of my computer, but if we were together in the room, I am a very casual person to begin with, but I would also be asking you all to ask questions, jump in, raise your hand, that sort of thing. So Chris is going to be monitoring the chat or the raise hand function. And so I first wanted to introduce Chris, if I could, for those of you who may not know him.
Hey everybody, my name is Chris Raycamp. I'm on Jill's team here at the UMKC Innovation Center's Technology Venture Studio, which includes our activities of Digital Sandbox. And as Jill said, I'm here to kind of support, help folks, navigate this experience, and happy to be a resource for folks that are interested in the Tech Venture Studio and of course Digital Sandbox. So nice to meet you all.
Great, thanks, Chris. And then also, because we tend to have a small group, many of you who I already know, please don't hesitate to stop throughout, interrupt, and we'll take questions through. We also, of course, are building time at the end to go through more questions, but happy to answer as we're in the flow. So first and foremost is, what is the pitch to the sandbox? The way we look at it from Digital Sandbox is it's a chance for you to tell your story. Give an overview about what you're working on, what you're excited about, what you're bringing to market, and then dig into a lot of that during the Q&A. So always think about your pitch as a chance to tell your story about what you're working on. So what are we looking for in this pitch? Well, there are 6 main things that we're going to drill down into on the call today. Primarily scalable concepts, a business concept, the team, who is working on this, what expertise do they bring, who do you have helping assist with it, your business model. The business model is a really key part. How are you making money? How will this be profitable? Who is your target customer? Timing, where are you in the development of this business? Are you at early stage, mapped it out yesterday on the back of a napkin? Or have you been working on it for 18 months and are at a different stage? So we'll be looking at that. And then how fundable, and this is something we're going to talk a lot about, but how fundable is this idea? Is your intent after you go through this sandbox proof of concept, build your product, bring an MVP to market, launch, is your intention to have it be a large scalable business that you'll take additional funding to launch it throughout the marketplace, or will it be a lifestyle business? So those are the 6 main things that we're going to talk about and go through. The reasons that we pick companies is that you are solving a real problem. So there is something out there, and when you're telling your story, you are giving us an overview of why it is a problem and how it is that you identified it as a problem, and then what it is that your business, your product or solution are doing to solve that problem. There is a meaningful IT component. So obviously Digital Sandbox is a technology entrepreneurship development play. So it is not for a restaurant type business or a clothing business or something that does not have a meaningful technology component to it. I talked briefly about it being a big scalable business. We do look at Sandbox as an opportunity to bring a scalable technology to market, and that it is being brought to market by a company with people that have the expertise to do that. And we'll talk a little bit more about expertise and who's on your team and things like that when we go through it. We do look at the ability to raise money, create jobs. How big will this business be 3-5 years from now? What does that vision look like that you are painting that picture for us? And typically we see, it says 72, but we typically see about 80 to 100 presentations a year, about 20 a quarter, and we fund 16 to 20 a year. So we typically fund between 20 and 25% of those that we see each quarter. So let me talk a little bit about the process before we get into the content. You will go online to the digitalsandboxkc.com website and complete an application. It's important to know that the application is a two-step process. Some folks think that they have completed it when they filled the first part. Our funder has us have a second part, which comes in the form of what would look like a survey. And you'll complete your first application where you're telling us all about the business and the problem that you are solving, what you're creating, and then that gets submitted. It generates out a second step, which is asking for demographic survey type information for the businesses that are applying to the sandbox. The second one should only take you a minute or two to complete. When both of those are in, then you will be contacted to find a time to schedule to present to the sandbox. We see presentations the first 2 months of every quarter, and we make funding decisions 4 times a quarter. So to map that out more clearly, we see presentations in January and February, and then a funding decision is made in March. We see presentations April and May, and then a funding decision is made in June, and so on. So 4 times a year, we see presentations on Wednesday mornings. They are usually every other Wednesday within the first 2 months of the quarter. And then a funding decision is made around the middle of the 3rd month of the quarter. And then we start again the top of the next quarter. And as you'll see, and we'll dive into, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation and then 20 minutes of Q&A. So your time in front of the Digital Sandbox team is 30 minutes, 10 minutes, which are your presentation, and 20 minutes, which are open for Q&A to learn more about what you've presented. The 10 minutes is a strict cutoff. You're given a 2-minute warning, a 1-minute warning, and then you are cut off. So I know with some pitching opportunities, it is not strict. They have a recommended 10 minutes or whatever the time on be. This one is very much a strict 10 minutes. And we emphasize that so that nobody's cut off guard. They're only on slide 5 of their 30-slide deck that they've put together and not able to really go through and tell their story. So I'm going to stop here because this is the first kind of, before we jump in, the logistics, the operational side. Excuse me. Any questions here? Okay, excuse me, I've been on back-to-back Zooms all day, and apparently right now when I'm trying to present is when I have a tickle in my throat, so I apologize about that. All right, so the typical deck. There's a typical presentation rule of thumb is a minute a slide. So if you have 10 minutes, you would do at most 10 slides. You can see here I'm already outlining 11 slides. What I am going to tell you, excuse me, is you are going to want to put the number of slides that make sense for you as a presenter. If you are the type of person that will use a lot of visuals and to tell your story, and you can click through visuals like this, then you might end up with 15 slides because some of those slides you're only going to be on for a few seconds as you are using one to show a visual and move on to the next and move on to the next. If you are the type of presenter that you get on a slide and then you're going to find yourself deep in the slide and going down rabbit holes and things like that, well, then you might only want to come with 7 or 8 slides because you know that you talk longer than a minute per slide. So everything that we talk about from this stage forward is what I would say is suggested ideas. By no means do these slides need to be in this order. By no means do you need to follow this template. This is just a guide of the types of things that we would like to see. And to help you, if you've never put together a pitch deck, to help your thinking around what do I want to tell in my story. And you see our note at the bottom about backup slides. Certainly when you get to the end of your 10 minutes, you might have some things that you say, shoot, if I had had 15 minutes, I would have talked about this, this, and this. So some entrepreneurs have what we call backup slides, a couple more slides on those subjects. If and only if they get asked that during Q&A, then it gives them an opportunity to click to that slide and explain it with some forethought. It is absolutely not required, absolutely not necessary, but I just shared that for those of you who are saying, how in the world do I get our story from this many slides down to this many slides, or this many minutes down to these 10 minutes. Sometimes be thoughtful about what I could maybe cover during Q&A if I'm asked versus during my 10 minutes of presentation time. So the first one, the wow statement. This is basically you not only introducing yourself, your name of your company, but what it is that you do. The example here, of course, is Digital Sandbox provides proof of concept resources to support early stage commercialization process. Think of it as your elevator pitch. Right off the top, tell us what we're going to be hearing about for the remaining 10 minutes. What it is that your company does, or what kind of business it's in, what industry it's in, why it's important, any of those things. And you see the comment about make it relatable. So we are the Airbnb for event spaces, or we're the Starbucks for yogurt. All of those bring up an image or a memory for the people that are listening to understand and put some frame around what you've said of, okay, got it. I know what I'm going to be hearing about for the next 10 minutes. Then you're going to jump to the problem, and you're going to tell us what is the problem that's out there? Who has the problem? Why is it a problem? How many problems are, how many people? How is it currently being solved if it is? How much would someone pay to have it solved, or are they paying already? So basically you are painting the picture of what you identified as a problem, such that it was so compelling to you that you decided you were going to build a business around it. A lot of times we talk about this as far as the gap in the marketplace. So there's a problem. It's a problem for you personally. You've seen it over and over and over, and you have searched, and nobody is trying to tackle this problem. No one has identified it. There is a gap there, and you've stepped in with your business to say, we can solve this. So what you're doing is setting up here the problem and why it's a problem. So in the example, you see 100 million people suffer from migraines that cost over $1 billion in lost productivity, and then goes on to say, what if you could have an early warning system that would allow you to prevent a migraine before it happened? So they are telling you this is what the problem is, this is how many people have it, this is what it does as far as causing lost productivity, and we are going to be addressing the earlier of identifying it. So here are a couple others. Price is an important concern for customers when booking travel online. Hotels leave you disconnected. There's no easy way to book a room. You can imagine this was the problem laid out for customers long before the Airbnb model, right? Like, what was the better way to book a room with the local folks? This was the problem that they laid out for what they were trying to solve. Okay, so your next slide or slides after your problem is your solution. So what are you going to be doing about it? What is it unique to what you are building, why you're here, that you're going to be showing as the value of what you're doing? So some examples on here. If the problem had been, it takes 6 months to collect X, Y, and Z, and your solution has taken that down to 4 months to collect, and that's an ROI of X millions of dollars for a customer. Or it takes 4 days to generate, let's say, an invoice. And with our software, it will take 1 hour to generate it. And that translates to blank. 200 million suffer from migraines. Our solution prevents 50% of those from having hospital visits and loss of work productivity, et cetera, et cetera. So what you're trying to do is not only have the problem that you've outlined, but how your solution is directly impacting that problem that you've outlined. And if possible, take it to the which means what, which is the return, which allows this, which increases productivity or prevents lost productivity, which equates to an ROI of this much saved in shipping time, or that kind of thing. these two slides, in our example here today, we're showing them as two slides. For some folks, this is really 3 or 4 of their slides. So 2 topics, problem and solution. But this would be an opportunity and an area for you to show if you've already built something, if you have screenshots, if you have a workflow diagram that shows how the solution works, any sort of imagery that you want to say, let me walk you through this, this would be the place that you would want to do it. So you've set it up, here's the problem, you've shown your solution, and then if you have already built something, if you have samples, if you have vision images of it, this would be a good place to show them. That said, we tend to have people who say, gosh, I'd really love to do a demo right at this point. Let me show you how it works. And so I'm going to give you the big, it is your presentation. You are certainly allowed to, but with the caveat of caution in that this is the one area where sometimes presentations can really get derailed because there's too much back and forth. You pull up the demo that they wanted to do, they have to move out of the slide deck over to a different browser, then they can't get back in, or what they thought was going to be 30-second demo is still running at 2.5 minutes. So I highly caution your ease of doing this. If it's something that's embedded in, you can click on it quickly, you can show something and can click right on it, get right back out, it might be worth it. Otherwise, maybe a demo is not your best solution right here, but still you could capture the same storytelling aspect of it with screenshots or something else that helps you illuminate your story. So any questions on problem and solution? Okay, I'm just going to keep going then. All right, so your 4th slide, market opportunity. Now you're really talking about how big is this market? This solution that you've identified that you're building, who is it for? How big is it? You see our somewhat tongue-in-cheek examples of, we don't need to hear it's huge. It's a huge market. It's enormous. A favorite was when somebody said that they were building it for smartphones and everyone who has a smartphone can have one. Well, that may be, but that doesn't mean that that is your market. So what about your solution? Who is your target? How would you define if you have multiple targets? Is there a primary market, a secondary? Is there a actual geographic market, and then geographic markets past that? Is there a reason that you're choosing this subset of the total addressable market as your first go-to, but then you're going to evolve it to different industries or things of that nature? Whatever any of that might be is what you're trying to describe. So we want to see that it's a big market, but more importantly, we want to see the research or the numbers or the story around your thoughts on why you're going after this market and your assumptions on why you are starting within this industry of the market or this geography of the market, and then you are growing from there. Okay. And then with that comes the market validation. And this is where you're going to have some numbers to back up what you're saying. So how many people are in this market that you've identified? Why are they in it? A profile or a demographic of them, if it makes sense for what your product or solution is. How they go about buying, so what their buying behavior is, again, if it makes sense for your product or service that you're bringing. Is it a little niche market, but a very, very high margin niche market? Is it a huge consumer mass market? All of those things you're going to want to help explain to, again, give more information about this problem and how you are solving it. And these are all the people that are going to be impacted by you solving this problem. And these are the people that are going to be willing to pay for it, for you to be solving this problem. So then you're going to talk in a way of marketing. So what is your go-to-market strategy? Now you've told me you have this problem. Here's our solution. This is how many people we're going to touch. This is how big the market is. And so now you're getting to the part of your story where you're telling us how you are going to reach them. What is your strategy? How are you going to build brand awareness? What is your pricing going to be set? What sort of distribution channels will you use if you use them? Will you have a sales force, or will this all be online? Will you be partnering, strategic partners, and leveraging off of their customer bases? You want to have details on this slide. This is a pitfall slide for some entrepreneurs because they have not put the time into, if we build it, they will come, and more of the, if we build it, how do we get it to the people that are going to be buying it? So be thoughtful on that and think through past social media. So for some of you, social media is in fact the exact way that you are going to build it, but even that should then have a very strategic thinking around it. Saying that we're going to use social media is not a go-to-market strategy. And so I just put that out there bluntly for you. So if your channel is going to be social media, then please be very detailed on what type of social media, why, how often, who is the social media reaching, what would it entail for you, how would someone buy through social media, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, this is a tough area for entrepreneurs sometimes to bridge between the problem solution we built and their financials. So I'm going to encourage you to put some thought around how are we actually getting this to paying customers. So competitive analysis. This is where you're going to tell us who else is out there already doing it, doing some version of it. Who else is working there and why your solution is better than what is maybe already on the market. Again, a little insight here is that everybody has competitors. Every single business has competitors. So the answer, we have no competitors, is really not accurate. Sometimes your competitor is in fact just the status quo. A software competitor might say our current competitors are people who are using Excel to do this, and they are just using Excel and they're comfortable using Excel and they don't want to move to a customizable software package. Well, then your competitor is that status quo of Excel, even if you can't find other competitors that are close. Sometimes the competitor is seen, sometimes folks will throw up Google or Facebook, and that may in fact be, but as we all know, those are just enormous companies. So that might be one, but what is it about Google that makes them a competitor? What part of their business? Because it certainly wouldn't and couldn't be the entire business unless you're building a search engine, I guess. But so maybe there are some more mid-size or small-size ones that are more your direct competitors today. In the long haul, what you'll be going up against is them, something like that. Okay. Some folks have one or two competitors. Some folks do a grid and show us 5 different competitors out there. The key thing is that, as you can see on this chart, you're going to be comparing yourself. So in this example, it's where it says your company relative to the others in the various areas on the left. In this case, this entrepreneur chose buying criteria, but you're going to choose whatever criteria you want on that side. Those are up to you. There's no predetermined, these are the things that you're matching up. So as the founder, be thoughtful about what your value proposition is. Why are you better, and what are you better in, what aspects? And then list those to show we are better than company A and company B in time to market. We are better in our pricing than company A and B. Company A is better in their time in market. They do better than us in this area, but so you don't have to win in every single criteria across all, but you want the most honest assessment of you're bringing this new business to market and who is going to notice, who are you going up against, and who is already someone that's using the services of one of your competitors. How would you convince them to go to yours? Those are all the things that we are trying to see. Okay, revenue model. You've heard me say a couple different times, how are you making money? This is another big area that needs a lot of clarity. So when you're making your presentation, this is one that you do not want to fly over, because if you do, I will tell you right now, that will be one of the very first questions that comes back is, can you go back and explain to us that pricing? So here's where you want to be able to say, based on all this that we've told you, what we built and the market size and who else is out there and what they charge, this is how we are making money. This is our revenue model. Is this a subscription model? Is this a subscription model and implementation pricing? Is it a monthly pricing? Is it an annual contract? Is it a 99-cent sort of price? Is it a $250,000 implementation? No right or wrong on how yours, because each of you has a very different business, but explain in some level of detail how you're going to make money so that it translates to your financials. Okay, this is an area, a big part of who is your paying customer. Many of you are bringing and building products that are two-sided marketplaces. So be very clear on, while it might be at no cost to this side, our paying customer is this. And the structure we've set for them to pay is A, B, and C. Okay, be super clear if you have a two-sided marketplace. So from your revenue, you should be able to go straight to your financial projections. I'm going to come back to this one and go to this one. The key thing is that you are going to give us financial projections of 3 years out, where we are today, and then a 3-year of what it will look like. We do not need to see 5 years out. You guys, this is early stage, proof of concept. No one expects that the numbers that you're putting for year 5 are even remotely going to be accurate. So 3 years is good, but not putting any projections is not going to work for Sandbox. You are getting money for a technology business to grow a scalable business. So there needs to be an understanding of the economics of, with this money, here's what we're going to build. So let me come back to that, go back to here. So the kinds of things that you do want to have in your projections and you don't want to have, as just said, about 3 years out, you want to talk about your customers, your revenue, and your expenses. If you want to calculate down to EBITDA, that's great, but by no means do you need to show taxes or earnings per share or any of those sorts of things. You're an early stage proof of concept level company. We are looking to say, do you understand your customers? How much revenue is going to come from those customers? What your expenses are going to be? How does that look? As simple as that. A lot of times at this early stage, what we are really looking at are your assumptions in your model. Do they make sense? So if in year 1, you say we're going to have 2 customers, and year 2, we're going to have 20,000 customers. It's a heck of a jump, right? So what is the assumption that's getting you from 2 to 20,000? Well, if that 20,000 are your customers or people that are paying, pennies, and it's just a mass marketing of bringing on users, that might make sense. But if your customers are school districts, let's use schools, I won't even use districts, just use schools, then to go from 2 schools to 20,000 schools, a little suspect. That is a very, very difficult sales channel, and to make that sort of jump from year 1 to year 2 seems like a hard sell. So those are the kinds of things that you are convincing in here. Why have you broken it out this way? I'll use one example that one of our counselors always mentions, is that if your sales are going up from year 1 to year 2 to year 3 with some pretty significant growth, but your marketing dollars are staying flat across all 3 years, that maybe doesn't make sense, right? Again, I'm generalizing because I don't know what your business model is or who your customer is, but in general, if your customer base and your reach for customers is growing so much, probably the dollars that you are spending in marketing to find those are also going up. So there's some things like that that you just want to make sure it makes sense, that you are making sure that if you say we have 52,000 users, only 2 of them are actual paying customers, then by all means, you're going to have a conversation or a question about your conversion rate. Why 52,000 and only 2 pay, right? Like, you just set yourself up. You know that's going to be the situation there. So know what your assumption is. Be ready to explain that that's what your model is that you're going to be adding on hundreds of thousands of users with the expectation that only a few people are paying, or the other way around. And I've already talked about the don'ts on here. So I'm going to go back to this. So you're going to translate all those assumptions, your numbers of customers, your expenses, your growth patterns into a simple 3-year projection chart. And I'm going to use the word simple. This one is not a simple one. This one, they put their target market, their users, they added churn, because in their case, it was all about users. And so they had churn. You might be selling something to large customers that you aren't going to have that level of churn. So you do not need to include that yet. You definitely do not need to include annualized revenue, annualized expenses, annualized EBITDA. If you are an accountant and a financial, or you've got a great person on your team, by all means include it. It's fabulous if you understand it and have thought it through. But if that's not you, please don't feel that you're seeing this slide and say, oh my gosh, I have to figure out what this means from an annualized basis. What we are most interested in is that you understand how you're making money, in which year you're going to make money, how much money you're losing until you start making money, what your expenses, are they in line with the projected growth, things of that nature. We're really looking at your vision, you as the CEO, that you understand the financials for your company for the first few years out. Any questions? Okay, let me go on. You're going to want to talk about your team. Some people want to talk about the team at the very beginning, which is fantastic. Some people put it before they dig into financials, also fantastic. And some people put it at the end that say, here's the group that's going to make all the magic happen, right? Again, there is no set template. All of these are great things. What you do want to do when you talk about your team is talk about why they are critical to what you are building today. So what about their background or their skill or expertise is going to help you move the needle forward on this business? Why, as you see on here, we say, what unfair advantage does this give your team? Many of you are a team of one, and we get that. You're early stage, you certainly don't have boatloads of money that you're sitting on to be able to pay lots of people to be on your team, in which case then focus on who are the advisors that are helping you. Who have you brought around you to work? What contractors might you be working with to help you? If you are a business, MBA-ish type of person building a tech business, then it's going to be important to understand who's doing the technology thinking here. If you are a technologist building it, then there's going to be it's going to be important to understand who's doing the business thinking here. Who understands the sales and that go-to-market strategy that you presented. So again, you can be a team of one with it. That is not an issue. It's who have you surrounded yourself with to fill the gaps that you don't have, the skills that you don't have, I guess the gaps that you do have. And why are they willing to volunteer their time to help you? That's a big thing, right? Like if other people are investing their time, volunteering, surrounding you, really believing in this, that tells a lot about your own credibility and the belief that this is a good idea and it's going to market. Okay, traction. This is an important part. Again, some people, not the milestone slide, but the traction part, some people are going to present right up front, but by no means get to the end of your presentation without telling us about your traction. What have you already done? Do you already have paid customers? Do you have letters of intent from people that as soon as this gets built, they've signed up to be a customer? Do you have early beta adopters? We put it out and we have 462 people on a wait list for as soon as our product's ready or signed up to be beta. Significant wins. We won this at this pitch competition. We participated in this accelerator. We got early funding from this. Any of that sort of stuff that tells the story of you had your head down, you've been working hard, people are noticing, you've achieved some things. Some people will use a timeline on here. By no means does it have to be a timeline. You can use milestones, you can just use graphics, you can just talk to it. But some way to say, if you do use a timeline like this, maybe the first quarter at most, is here's what we've already done. right? Those are where the wins are. This is the team you pulled together. You attracted advisor, John Doe, whatever. That's the first quarter. And then the next 3 quarters of it, no more than 18 months out. Again, you're not showing us a timeline for where you're going to be in 2025. Nobody expects you to do that. Just the next 12 to 18 months, here's what we're working on. Here's where we're going to raise money so that with this money in Q4 of 2022, it allows us to do X in Q1 of 2023, or here's where we're hiring our CTO or whatever, okay? So you're gonna lay it out to help support the traction of everything you've told. Here's with this money, here's where we're going next. The only other thing I'm gonna tell you on this slide is do not bury the lead all the way at the end. So if you are a company that already has 450 beta users in market. If you've already done your beta and you are in a soft launch right now, please be sure to put that all the way at the beginning when you're telling your story and you're talking about your solution. Here's our solution, and here's what we already are doing. We have a paid customer. We are doing this. We started in the Kansas City market, and we're now in 3 other markets within the last 10 months. Whatever that might be, don't bury that lead all the way at the end. Right up front, toot your horn, okay? And then the ask. This is, you are asking for money. So there has to be a slide that says, what do you want? Digital Sandbox provides up to $20,000 for this project funding. So you and most of your colleagues ask for up to 20,000. But if you know that your project is only 16,000, then only ask for the 16. If you know that it's going to be 60,000, then you're going to need to explain where the other 40,000 is coming from, and that the sandbox money is finishing the 60,000. So a little caveat there, Digital Sandbox will never go in on a project where it is a 60,000 and we give you the first 20,000 and then you say, well, we'll have to raise or save or bootstrap the other 40,000. As you can imagine, if we put that in and then you're not able to do that, the project goes nowhere and the company doesn't move forward. So in those situations, we would say you need to have the 40,000, do that work, and then Digital Sandbox will come in as the vendor for the last 20,000 to get you to market. Most people have a project that is up to 20,000, so that's not an issue. The funds can be used directly for anything to do with your development, design on the front end, UI, UX, building the database on the back end, an e-commerce platform, anything like that. Specifically, our funders over the years have certainly changed, and we are not able to do any projects that are for flat out marketing or for legal. So if it was patent work that you needed, in the past, Digital Sandbox could fund patent work, and we no longer can do that. If it was marketing in the sense of a go-to-market collateral, making your logo, that is not something that Digital Sandbox can fund. If it were market research with your beta testers on what people thought of the app that you built, that's different. That would be more under the development side, okay? But regardless, you're going to want to understand what your ask is. You're going to explain it, and you're going to explain your future plans for fundraising. With this 20,000, it allows us to go from here to here. And then when we have this, then we go out and we can get our customers, our first revenue, or then we go out and we can show it to potential equity investors, and we can raise more money so that it gets us to here. We build the market and we go from there. So this 20,000 is your initial proof of concept, early project funding. It allows you, the company, to go from here to here. And then by being here, sets you up to do what? That's kind of what you're explaining on your ask. Okay, and then just a few more hints. Practice in front of real people. You have a video camera and you want to record yourself, by all means do that. But you want to see, again, some people do not think that they are chatty Cathy's and that they can get through this in 10 minutes in no time. And when they actually give it and the 10 minutes are up and they still have 5 slides left to go, they're surprised as can be. So some people get nervous and will spend a lot more time on a slide than they anticipated. Other people will get nervous and fly through a slide and not even hit on the main things that they wanted to say. So practice, 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 practice with a timer so that you feel as confident as you can be when you come in. When in doubt, less is more, for sure. So, 10 slides, as I said at the beginning, that 10, 11 slides is kind of your rule of thumb. If you are a practice presenter and you want to use more slides, go for it. If you are concerned that you're going to get deep into the technology weeds of something and all of a sudden 3 minutes and you're still in that one slide, just create less slides. Some of these are obvious. We talked about backup slides. Obviously, when you walk into the room from that point on, the team is observing. I think what that is on here, and I'm going to share with you all that is on here from when we did do these in person, but we have certainly had over the time when they've been in person, some founders that have come in together, and the two founders were bickering with each other just in setting up their deck and their presentation before they even started. So as you can imagine, that doesn't build a lot of confidence that this is a really strong work together team. So think about that when you're coming in and what's being observed. This bullet point on here about revenue, please know your numbers. This is real money that you're receiving, and you are the CEO of the company, and you are receiving the money. We are writing a check for you to do something with this money. So know your numbers. It is never really a great answer to say, I didn't put those together. Let me ask my advisor, Jane, over here to explain the financials to you, okay? So if you need assistance with your projections and things before you pitch, let us know. We're happy to help you. But you want to own your numbers and know what you're talking about. And we hear many times, oh, these numbers are very conservative. Okay, you are coming in as an entrepreneur to pitch for money. So everyone knows entrepreneurship is really hard and risky as all get out. So if you are already cutting your numbers in half before we even see that, please know that from an investor standpoint, we always are going to look at those numbers and say, I'm going to cut those numbers in half because this is the optimistic entrepreneur throwing their numbers up there. So if you are not being the optimistic entrepreneur and you have already cut them and then said these are very conservative, then there's sometimes the question of, is this entrepreneur confident in what they're doing? Do they have big vision for what they're building and how it's going to work? So of course, saying we're going to have $100 million in year one is goofy. No one's going to believe that. But also saying we're going to have $1,000 by year three, also goofy, right? Not a scalable business. So back to my very first slide when I said, you are telling us a story. We are there to support you and believe in you and get this business up off the ground. So make sure that what you're explaining when you get to your financials makes sense to all the rest of the story that you told us. And if this was a big market with lots of customers, no one else doing it, very cutting edge, and your product is really ready, then why would you only be trying to attract 10 customers in year one, right? So think through that story. You don't need to be conservative in there. You want it to be representative of a really great opportunity that you are bringing to market. Okay, I am going to stop there before I go to the end and open it up and questions and things that people want to follow up on. I know several of you have already presented in different venues and things, so you might not have any questions, but did want to ask if there was anything here at this point.
I'll jump in and just say it is an early stage proof of concept fund. And so while we are outlining all the very necessary components, right, we also recognize that a lot of this is theoretical. And so it's just about being thoughtful about that go-to-market strategy. And so some of those milestones that you talked about, Jill, right, or traction and milestones, some of that stuff is really, really early stuff. And so, and people are really entrepreneurial and creative about how they create those early traction in the marketplace. And so you might not have revenue, and that's very understandable. It's a proof of concept fund, right? So how else are you getting people on board and showing that there's interest in the market, that sort of thing? So just wanted to say that a lot of these things, we're just looking for people to be really thoughtful and create the opportunity to show that you're out there hustling and try to create something. Larissa, I see you got your hands up, so I'm going to stop speaking.
No, you're good. I'm going to ask what is probably, my apologies, I did pop in about 30 minutes late, and I feel like I should know this, but I don't. Is it specific, does every company that applies have to have a tech angle to it? I know you mentioned like if there's physical products, obviously I've talked to folks about in the manufacturing space, right? But it does all have to be somehow driven back to some kind of tech related work. Yes, no?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that. And yes, that's correct. So Digital Sandbox is strictly for a technology, at its core, a technology business. Perfect. If I am a dress shop, right, and I am building a website to sell my dresses, that's really not technology at the core. That's a dress shop at the core, right? But if I'm building a VR solution for something, that would be a tech. So absolutely.
Perfect. I just wanted to, that's always been the assumption and that's always been my understanding, but I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't mistaken.
No, you're right.
I see Zach's hands up too.
Jill, thanks so much for holding this and allowing us to be part of this. My question comes to, what if we're working on other grants that potentially will help us fund this as well? Does that, and should we talk about that in our presentation or maybe in the question and answer? Should we just leave it alone and not even mention it? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, thanks, Zach. Absolutely. Again, Digital Sandbox goal would be to fund every single business that we see through to get them past the proof of concept stage, right? So it does nothing but help if you are finding dollars from other sources, and particularly other grants is fantastic, because it just bolsters the money that you might also be receiving from Digital Sandbox and allows that money to go further. Particularly, Zach, if for those of you who are going after a small business innovative research grant, an SBIR, those are, and particularly if any of you have received one, those are very credible building. Those are very hard to get. And so if you are going after one or your company has received one, it's really that check for the credibility of your science, of your technology, right? Like there is real interest that this is a viable solution. So you should always, I think, bring them up. If it's just something like down the road, we think we might go after additional funding through XYZ grant. Sure, again, no reason to not bring it up, but you might bring it up at the end under your additional funding, like what this allows you to do. Maybe it's on your timeline where you're showing, we're going to do this, we'll build this, we'll bring it to the market, and then in Q3, we're going to submit an SBIR, or we're going to go after XYZ grant or things like that. So any of that, additional grants are fantastic, not something to be shied away from, and fit it in wherever it makes sense, Zach, as far as why that helps your company get to market faster. All right, other questions? Brian.
Hey, Jill, thank you for hosting this class today. This is kind of a follow-up question from Larissa. I guess I'm looking to learn a little bit more on the technology platform that Digital Sandbox is, looking for those type of startups. I've got a workshop that I've been doing live, and I'm trying to transition into a virtual space. And in doing so, I would like to create a marketplace to help make this a streamlined experience for the end user. Is that something that would be aligned with Digital Sandbox? Is that enough tech to be applicable?
Yes, it is. I do like the description, enough tech. So Brian, in your case, I know a little bit about your business just because of Comeback KC Ventures, and Yes, if you are taking what is typically a traditional non-tech business and you are building a platform or a marketplace to take a traditional business and offer it as a to a different audience or through a different technology interaction with your product, then yeah, that's a tech play. You are using technology to make something offering that you couldn't before. So in your case, you have a traditional business that in order for it to work in today's environment, you would need to be able to have this traditional business that is now no longer traditional. It would have to be offered through a VR, AR, it would have to be offered through some sort of platform where people could interact with it on the platform. So in that case, then yes, that is absolutely a technology.
Appreciate that. Now, the reason I'm following up is that what I went, and I'm awesome that you've heard of me through Comeback KC. Where I was asked to do in that program was kind of deep sea fishing, and it involves a lot of AR component. And like, I don't know if there's enough resources right now in today's market to make that a viable product for that end. So I'm dialing back into that middle step. And to me, I guess that virtual platform is a little bit more accessible right now than building out something in the AR space, which I see, but I don't know if I might be a little ahead of the curve on that one, a little deep diving, but yeah.
I think, and certainly can take it offline too, Brian, but that's exactly what your technology counselor in the Innovation Center is going to be able to do with you and work with you on it and map it out and say, does this make sense? If you're building this platform, will technology make this viable, right? Again, it's not a dress shop that you're just building a website to allow me to purchase an online. That's different. So I don't believe that's what you're describing. Was where I work with someone who is going to be able to map out what that project scope would look like, how you're going to use technology for that, and then look at that solution to say, now is there a paid customer here, right? Do the financials now make sense if this is the way we're going to sell it? So happy to help you offline with that too, Brian.
Thank you very much. I will definitely take you up on that.
You bet. I saw Matt's text that he needed to go, and I feel certain that others do. So what other questions?
Larissa's got a hand up again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. This one kind of ping pongs back off of Brian. He got me thinking. So just super quick, anything that says that these have to be for-profit entities? So if there's a nonprofit that is trying to okay.
They do have to be for-profit, Larissa. Okay. Digital Sandbox, our funder, thank you for bringing that up. They do have to be for-profit companies. They do have to be in the Kansas City region. Our shareholders, goodness, I wish stakeholders are different funders. So right now, all businesses on the Missouri side, regardless of your municipality, are open to. On the Kansas side, there are different communities that are supporting Digital Sandbox and some that are not once the state removed its statewide funding. However, we have other funds that are supporting the entire region, and then our Comeback KC fellows for people working on pandemic related solutions. They also fund the whole region, but they do have to be for-profit businesses with the intention of growing a scalable technology that would take follow-on funds.
Perfect. Thank you. That answers that question.
I dropped a host of links in the chat for everybody. Obviously, the Digital Sandbox website, as well as our partner, the Small Business Development Center, has a tech venture class that comes up that a lot of folks get a lot of value out of in preparing for Digital Sandbox and just launching a new tech venture. I also put in, as we've mentioned, the Comeback KC Ventures program. There's an event coming up. It's a business model canvas workshop that, as folks, if you're ideating about something, might help you formulate that. That's specific to the Comeback KC program, which you could read more about there. And then I also put our the platform .dev KC. So if you're looking for technical support, in building it, this is a kind of one-stop shop for the Kansas City community to find the development support. What other quick calls to action might we have, Joe, for folks?
No, I appreciate you putting in the real big calls to action are the technology venture class that comes up in February. As you said, Chris, that is a phenomenal, and there's some of you on the call that I know have already attended that and have built your business and the insights on the customer discovery to this point. So that's great. The next week though is the design workshop around the business concepts. What can they look like? How are, and these are for pandemic related solutions. Thank you for Charlotte for putting that in. To sign up if you want to attend, it's next Thursday, a week from today, and it was really for those of you who might remember, hark back to the startup weekend era, where these concepts that are things that people in the community have said this is something that should be happening relative to COVID response, and then it's going to be grouping people around them to help build it out. From the what would be the next steps? What does that business model look like? What kind of development would that need, or what kind of marketing would that need, or things of that nature. So it's really going to be interactive, fun, great audience, great way to network and meet other people, and also help Kansas City drive some more technologies to help lessen the impact of the pandemic. That's it. All right, well, we are very accessible, so do not hesitate to reach out to any of us at Digital Sandbox. Chris, myself, as well as the entire UMKC innovation team is here. The Small Business Development Center has its technology counselors that are also there to really work hand in hand with you. If there are no cost counseling to sit with you, help you develop the model, bring it out, and pitch prep or anything that you need for getting ready to be in front of Sandbox. We always will send out this deck as well to those of you who are here on the call. So I should have said that at the beginning, so you weren't probably trying to take screenshots or things. I should tell you right off the bat that we're going to send the deck, so you have that. But any questions as you look through it in the future, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye, Chad.